Well, hello, friends and fellow pioneers. Right now, I have the pleasure to be speaking with Noah Sanders. One of our subscribers referred us to each other, and I was so amazed at how much of an answer to prayer it was, because I had been looking at my bookshelf, just wondering who are some people that we've learned from that we could interview. And when she shared, when she introduced us, I remember that 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, Jason had actually read his book. So Noah wrote this book called Born Again Dirt: Farming to the Glory of God, Cultivating a Biblical Vision for God Glorifying Agriculture. And so we really appreciate Noah's work, and thank you, Noah, for sharing this time here where we can talk about what you're doing and what we're collectively doing to try to help encourage people to be faithful stewards of what they've been given. So with that, I just want to welcome you and have you share with us kind of the journey of what brought you here and your vision for how people can not only become better stewards of how they sustain themselves, but how they can be a blessing to their communities.
Mm. Well, that is a big question, and we'll see how we get directed in what parts of the story to share here. I'm really grateful to be on here. Thanks so much for having me. And yeah, it was neat how we were connected that way. It's I'm really excited about what you're doing, what you've been sharing with your audience, and so grateful for everyone that's listening. And it's just a joy and a privilege to be able to share, just to give a little bit of a background about who I am right now, what I'm doing. I'm currently sitting right outside my house here on our farm in Alabama here, and it's looking pretty wintry here, but not near as snowy as I'm sure it is for some of the rest of y'all in different parts of the country and world. So we have a small farm and homestead. It's family land. My dad owns it, and I have a beautiful wife, Dorothy, and 6 little kids ranging from 9 to about 6 months. Our youngest is a set of twin boys, and they were born in June, and it's quite an amazing, I mean, my wife and I are like, can you believe we have 2 kids, like 2 babies at one time? This is just awesome. So we're just loving it, loving the life that God's given us here. We, for our business, we have a small market garden. We raise vegetables in kind of a no-till system, very low tech. We don't use any powered tools except like lawnmower around the edges for the grass, and a few battery powered things. But we've been really blessed to have a great customer base that we deliver to their homes. We have about 30 families that we supply with vegetables, and then we also do some meat chickens and some laying hens. So we do eggs and meat chickens, and my wife does some amazing home baked goods with sprouted wheat berries and awesome organic cookies, and we do tortillas and all kind of things. So we're really like our customers, custom farmers, homesteaders, trying to grow the food that they would if they could, but if they live in town and don't have that lifestyle, then we're kind of, we say that we're their farmers. And so we are able to have that community, and we deliver to them on a almost weekly basis around the season. We, in addition to that, we have our homestead, which we kind of view separately because we want it a little more sustainable than some of the business stuff we do. We're really concerned with the health of the food that we grow. But sometimes, if you try to like grow all your own chicken feed, save all your own seeds, do everything on your production level, sometimes it's not actually adding value and serving your customers where they are at that particular time. But on our homestead level, we're able to be a lot more adventurous and do things where we can, try to save seeds and hatch our own eggs, and and so that's where we're really focused more on some of the trying to develop a lifestyle of production rather than of just consumption. And it's been quite the journey. When my wife and I have been married now for 10 years, and it's always been a passion of mine. I grew up being homeschooled, and that was quite an adventure. My parents were really good at trying to not just spoon feed us everything, but facilitate learning. And so I really got a real hunger and an appetite for discovery and learning and doing things as I was growing up. And I also really appreciated the lifestyle of the life that I had with my family, with my hanging out with my siblings, learning from my dad. I also built a lot of relationships in our community with older guys that knew how to do cool things like beekeeping and had sawmills or whatever. So I always joked that I'd be like 16 or 17 and I would be talking to my friends on the phone, but most of them were all over 60. Very few of them were my own age. But from that, I had a desire and a hunger to develop skills that would allow me to do productive work, both for a living, serving other people professionally, and also producing things to meet my own needs that enabled me to cultivate healthy relationships as we did it, both with our family and then with other people in our community. And so that kind of began a journey of trying to fill my tool belt with a lot of different skills that my dad really encouraged me to try to learn useful skills, because there's something you can always either, save money by doing something yourself, whether it's plumbing or electrical or changing the oil in your car or growing some food. You can save money, you can help somebody that just needs help, or you can, serve other people in a way that makes you income. So you can almost always use a useful skill. And I love sports and things like that. But my dad, he says, he spent thousands and thousands of hours learning how to, doing layups and practicing basketball and other sports growing up, that he wished he had traded some of those for a few useful skills that he could still, benefit from today. And so it's neat looking back in my journey now. I didn't know that I would be farming now, but I really feel like as I sought to be faithful with each thing that God gave me an interest in, whether it was website design, let me learn how to design and build a website, or I love art or writing or mechanics, or all those things I've been able to use now in what he's in the mission he's given me to do with what our family's doing. And it all had to do with being faithful with what I had at the moment. And that helped me down that, because you don't know oftentimes, where we're going to end up down the road. But if we're faithful with what we've been given, then I saw how that helped us to be able to be right in the place with the right skills to be able to do what God's called us to do now with our homestead and in our community here. But as I was growing up, we lived on a small piece of land, and I kind of did some homesteading stuff. We raised chickens in a garden and had some bees and all that. And I thought I might do for a living some type of craft. Like I had a blacksmithing business for a while, and I repaired musical instruments for a while. And those are all things you can have a little workshop, and then have your homestead and you kind of live there on your homestead. But then I read some of Joel Salatin's books on kind of the smaller direct marketing retail model of farming that my dad had grown up in Indiana, where it was all large scale production and you sold wholesale, where you kind of are a price taker instead of a price maker. And it's very difficult to do unless you've been born into a large inheritance or are willing to accumulate a lot of debt. And so once we saw some of that, the way to be able to make a living on a smaller piece of land, because you're selling retail and you're getting 100% of that retail dollar rather than just a few cents of it like the average farmer, then I began to pursue learning how to grow really healthy food in a way that benefited people and the land, by trying to copy the way that God's designed things in nature, and really, have happy chickens, have happy plants, and so that they can be healthy, and in turn we can be healthy as we benefit from the products that they produce. And so through that, we started on a small scale, learning how to do some of the pastured broilers, meat chickens, and the free range eggs, and the organic gardening where we were at. And then over time, the Lord allowed us to get a large piece of property. Right now, our family owns about 150 acres here in the rural part of Alabama, but we're an hour away from 3 major cities. So we're able to have pretty easy access to markets. And we sold for about 8 to 10 years at a farmer's market in Birmingham, Alabama, which is a really great market, and built so many good relationships there. And a few years ago, we transitioned to focusing more on developing kind of a membership subscription kind of model of marketing, because we had really loyal customers that we wanted to find a more efficient way to get them our products rather than us both showing up on a Saturday morning every Saturday and with minimal communication. And sometimes we didn't have what they needed, and sometimes they weren't there to buy what we brought. And so we developed a system where it's kind of like a CSA or community supported agriculture, where people receive a share, but we do it a little different, where it's kind of, you're either active or you're not active. And it's kind of like Netflix for vegetables. And then you receive bags that are completely customized to your preferences, and then you can edit it, and then we do home delivery. And so it was a real blessing, because when COVID hit at the beginning of the year, we didn't change anything. I mean, we didn't have to change anything to fit protocol. It was all just right there. And so again, that going back to being faithful with what you've been, where you are, or the next thing God's putting in your heart, it's amazing to see how he'll put you right where you need to be without you being able to anticipate that.
Right.
And so we're really blessed with where we are now. We're still developing our homestead a lot. We've been putting in some of our more sustainable systems, like our water systems, trying to get ram pumps hooked up, to be able to supply water to our house. And we've tried to build our house in a way that we call it low grid, where we enjoy the luxury of electricity. We try to treat it like a luxury, and so we have non-electric backups for everything, so that, like with about a month ago, we had a hurricane that came through and knocked a bunch of trees down in Alabama, and we were out of power for about 5 days. And we don't want to be just camping out where we can't do anything, we can't function normally without the electricity. So we have our electric stove, because, I mean, to be honest, it's my wife who benefits from electricity and the household chores way more than I do, often on the farm, because it's so many labor-saving devices there with clothes washing and all that other stuff. So we enjoy those, but like we have electric stove. We also have a wood-burning cook stove. We have lights. We also have designed our house to have natural lighting. We have electric washer. We also have a really good system for hand washing clothes. Dryer, but we also have a really good clothesline. All those things, so that we're, in order to be more flexible, while we have that, to use electricity as a blessing, to be able to leverage our time to use that for improving our systems, for going further, faster than we would be able to otherwise, but at the same time trying to be careful not to become unnecessarily dependent on it, because we recognize the vulnerability of that, and making sure that we have a diversity of options there from that. So we also, as we've been in this journey, have really had a passion to share with other people what we've been learning as we've gone on the journey, because there's a lot of people, obviously, not just this year, but in previous years, who have been interested in homesteading. How can we live more sustainably? How can we swap our dependencies from things that are out of our control and that are really like putting all your eggs in one basket, to diversifying our dependency on more locally based things? We're not trying to become independent. We're trying to diversify our dependency and invest in depending on people and things that we have a relationship with, because there's a degree of accountability and resiliency there that isn't when you're just a number on a chart, and the people that provide our electricity, they don't know me, and I can't expect them to treat me like they know me, because they don't, and it doesn't mean that they don't value me, but they just can't value me the same as somebody that is my neighbor, that can provide maybe the same type of service that I'm getting through the electrical stuff that we have. Make sure I have that relationship as well. And but anyways, we've been a big heart of ours is to help the people in our community learn some of the skills that we've learned, like gardening in a very low-tech way with minimal equipment, to be able to develop some of the skills that can help make their life richer and less vulnerable to people who aren't dependable or who aren't trustworthy, and systems like that. And so our heart is not just to create our own little homesteading utopia, our own little farming utopia here, just for ourselves, but it's to use it as a platform and a base to be able to love people around us in a practical way by showing them how to meet their needs in a more rich way, and also through our business, through meeting people's needs, through the food that we produce, and developing very deep relationships with those people where they trust where their food comes from, where they value our family and our relationships. And we also want our farm to be a platform, or let's say more like an environment where we can do hospitality, where we can invite people over. We have people right now staying in our house tonight that I was walking around the farm right before the call. I was like, sorry, I got to get on a call. We got to get on. And also with my kids, like my kids, sometimes we overlook our kids because they're there, and everybody has kids, but it's like, I feel like the greatest opportunity for showing love and investing in people that are very dependent on you, in a very vulnerable way. Our kids are like that. And so I really want to, as a dad, make sure that I'm investing in them sacrificially and lovingly, and recognizing that learning and character and all those other things that they need to learn is not something you can just, hey, read this book, but it's something I need to model in my life before them. And to do that in the context of serving other people and involving my kids in serving other people, so that they can experience that. They can experience, eating good food. They can experience work and the trials and the hardships of, trying of the realities of life and how things don't always work out right. And not so that they can all be farmers and homesteaders when they grow up, but so that they can be equipped for whatever it is that God has for them to do, whatever way that they're going to serve people in their life and bring glory to God. And so that's what really motivates us about what we do. I mean, farming is cool, but if that's farming in and of itself is not like nothing in and of itself is satisfying without a bigger picture of how is this helping me fulfill my purpose and mission that God's put me on earth for. And keeping that in mind is what really helps you when you're like, farming just ain't fun today. It's cold and it's wet and all the animals are dying and nothing's going right. And there's a hailstorm that destroyed all the vegetables. Why am I doing this again? You got to have that bigger picture and that bigger purpose to help you push through those things, to say, well, I don't farm just because it makes me happy. I farm because this is what God's given me to do, and it fulfills me at this point in season in my life. And, we've got to make sure that we have that perspective, because, you may lose your farm tomorrow for what some unforeseen circumstance. I've had friends that's happened in other countries where the government took it away, or because of, chemical spray drift that destroyed their organic farm. I mean, there's lots of things that can happen, and we've got to have our hope in something bigger than just our own little environment that we've created right around us, or we're not very resilient, and that really has to do with investing in relationships, investing in our relationship with God, investing in our relationship with people, with our family, with our community, because that's, at the end of the day, any resource that we need comes from a relationship. And so the worst thing we can do is is sacrifice relationships for the sake of resources that we think we need, that makes us not have time for those relationships. And right now, I feel like the season that we're in with our young kids and our community, being involved in the local volunteer fire department and neighborhood watches and different community events, we really feel like God's telling us to spend more time investing in people and doing farm trainings and training people in some of that in what we do, both through our online academy with teaching people on our 3 different levels. We do, basic backyard food production, just getting started, trying to grow a lot of your own food through homesteading, or trying to grow food to sell to others. There's those kind of 3 levels that we teach both on the farm here and some online, kind of on the side of what we do. But our primary focus is doing it ourselves, so that we can, because a lot of people, they don't want to just know the how to do it. They want to see somebody doing it for real. They want to see that it's possible. And so for this season in our life, we're really trying to model, what does it look like to live out our faith in what we do practically, in a way that's transformative both to us and to the people around us. So there's a lot more story, but I'll let you follow up with any questions you have on that, and we'll see where it goes.
Well, thank you, Noah, for sharing that. I think that it's just so powerful to hear your story. We have been married nearly 23 years. We're coming up on anniversary here in a couple of weeks, and the journey that God has also taken us through. One of the things that I've realized recently is that nothing that we're doing right now, it's like nothing is wasted. That nothing that we're doing right now just appeared out of the blue. It's been like a snowball building over decades, and I'm so grateful. We have a promise that we'll reap a harvest if we don't give up, and oftentimes we don't see the fruit yet of something, and we may grow weary of doing good, or to seek, how do we glorify God in this situation of my life. I'm not bearing fruit, but what I see also, we have so many similar things that we're doing, investing in relationships, helping people how to invest in things that matter, and the relationship with themselves and with their creator, is really foundational to really make any substantial progress forward, because a lot of the times we leave ourselves last, and we are really the foundation of the vision of what we're going to be doing. And so I really just appreciate everything that you shared. It was so on point with our heart, and where we feel like God has placed us in preparing all these years behind the scenes. We were offline. We were fully off grid. We've done low grid, off grid, no grid, whatever, all the different things, and so it just really resonates, and it's so great to just hear you're part of this story. And I will say that we have, even though you're not necessarily from the South, that you're in the South, but Mississippi is where our story together began 23 or 24 years ago. And I hope also that some of we have friends in Alabama, maybe they can kind of refer some people your way. But it's just really great. I just thank you for opening up and sharing the story of your journey and your stewardship, like your perspective on what you should be doing, and to be faithful where you're at, to be patient, that it will develop into a greater, a more meaningful expression of what God wants to do through you, through your life, through your family. And I do feel like that's a big differentiator into, who we can best serve, is the people that they want to lead their families, but they want to really be a lighthouse in their community, and not just sustain themselves just to survive. I mean, what in the end, really, what is there if you are only doing it for yourself, and you saved yourself, you survived for yourself, and you didn't equip other people? Like the title of this podcast is multiplying. We are to be faithful, and to be fruitful, and to multiply. And there's no way that we can be faithful without being fruitful and multiplying. And so all of everything that you shared, I wrote a few things down, but it was so it just resonated so much with what we're doing, and it's such an honor to be able to share this space and to point people to to your work, if they haven't already found your book or already found your resources, your academy. I am putting some I put description links in the description below, but is there anything that you can share as we close about what they can expect to find in when they go through and connect with your online resources?
Yeah, well, the resources that we've developed are ones that we feel like one of the things that was lacking in the space especially in the agricultural homesteading space, was ones that really integrated the faith aspect. A lot of followers of Jesus don't really ask the question, how does what I believe impact what I do? And yet when you look at whether it's the two kind of the division in agriculture in the US, on one side you have that extreme industrial agriculture, On the other side, you have extreme kind of environmental organic agriculture. The difference in why they do what they do differently has to do with their perspective and what they believe of what is life. Is life, how do you treat life? Is there a moral dimension to it? Where is the solution, all the answers? Is it in science and whatever we can manipulate? Or is it going back to the original, the way that we see it working in nature? And so one of my heart is to challenge followers of Jesus to say, how does the heart of Jesus that we're trying to follow, his humility, his unselfishness, his faithfulness, how does that impact what we do? So on the Academy, we have, we're always kind of talking about that, like marketing, production, planning. How does what we believe impact that? And how do we identify the areas we're being inconsistent and try to become more consistent? Because we really feel like the more we can get right and reflect that relationship we have with Jesus in those other relationships in our life, our relationship with ourselves, with others, with creation, then we begin to see more abundance and we begin to see more resilience in that area. So we really feel like community is big too. So our platform on Redeeming the Dirt Academy, most like the majority of what people benefit from is the community. We have people all over the world there that are sharing and discussing and encouraging each other and posting prayer needs and all that. So that's really crucial and helpful. We also have courses on just basic gardening, courses on homesteading, courses on market gardening or market farming and how to do it from a business perspective. We have a new master class I did last year that have been offering the audio free through our podcast recently, but it's all on time management as a farmer, how to plan and manage your time in a way that, because that tends to be the biggest pain point for a lot of us is I have all these things I want to do and I just don't have enough time. So it's another resource we put on there. And then we have live coaching calls once a month, which is a really encouraging time to come together. And we discuss what's going on and sometimes we have topics, but that also really helps us to stay connected. So in addition to that, we have, again, the Redeeming the Dirt podcast that you can find in most places. And we kind of go along some of the same themes and consistent with what y'all have been sharing. We've been talking more recently in a series about how do we prepare for times of crisis? How do we respond to that? And how can we set ourselves up to view it with the right perspective so that we can respond appropriately in that. So yeah, you can, redeemingthedirt.com is where you can find most of those resources.
Well, thank you, Noah, again for your time and for your generous expression as you shared so many aspects of your journey. Again, everybody, as you're watching, click on the links below to get access to not just the courses, but also the podcast and the books that Noah has written. And I was asking Noah earlier, there's so much more that he's learned since he wrote this book, but a lot of it you can get through listening to his podcast and being a part of the community, get some of those nuggets that haven't yet to be written. As I close, I just wanted to ask you, is there any final thoughts? Normally I close the broadcast with a blessing, but is there anything that you would like to share as a final word of inspiration? Does anything come to mind?
What I would like to share is something that was shared to me by one of my mentors, and it really is a simple way to look at faithful stewardship and how we can evaluate whether we're being faithful with anything in whether it's our land and our farms or our homestead. And it's been just transformative. It's 4 simple principles. And it really has, these 4 principles are what you need, the way in which you need to do something and manage something if you want to make a profit. Profit sometimes sounds like a bad thing, but profit is the fruit of faithfulness. If you're being faithful with something, you will produce more than you consume. If you're being unfaithful, you will lose more than you gain, right? And that's kind of how it is. Like in the Bible, there's the parable of the talents, and the faithful servants were the ones who increased what they had. They didn't just maintain it or lose it. They increased it. So if we want to see increase in our life, profit in any area of our life, and for me, I think about it, and teach about it specifically in light of farming, there's 4 principles. The first one is we have to do things on time. Everything, whether you're planting on time, you're doing your work on time, you're doing your parenting on time, you're doing your communication, your marriage on time, whatever it is, you've got to do things on time, because it really just reflects the way God is and how he does stuff. Everything is done in season, right? On time. If you plant late, you lose. Right? If you plant too early, you lose. So you got doing things on time. So the second one is doing things to a high standard of excellence. Not doing anything half-heartedly. If you can't do it with excellence, then do we need to be doing it, right? Making sure we're focusing so we can do everything with excellence. And again, we're just reflecting God. Like tonight, again, we're going to have the amazing event of Jupiter and Saturn coming together. And I just had amazing sunset out here. And you look at the details on a plant, and you look at just the flowers, and I mean, everything with excellence. So if we can do things with excellence, if your rows are beautiful, if your crop stand is even, if your office is nice and tidy, it brings, it's just, if you don't do it that way, you're going to lose. So on time to a high standard. Third is with minimal waste, making sure that we aren't wasting, again, time, resources, soil, water, energy, anything like that. Again, God is a God that loves to restore, not to throw away, but he loves to restore people. He doesn't waste anything in nature. And amazingly, in that story where Jesus fed the 5,000, I mean, even if he multiplied the loaves and the fishes, he still said, make sure you pick up everything left over. Don't waste it. I mean, he has that heart. And so whatever we do, if we go and we are appreciating things rather than discarding them, that's critical for making a profit and being faithful with it. And then the fourth thing is really the fruit of the first 3, and it's the secret to actually doing it. And that is to do things with joy. If you don't do things with joy, then you lose your strength, you lose your motivation. And really, when you don't do things on time, when you plant late, when you don't do things to a high standard, when the weeds are all coming up and the row's crooked, and you're wasting your soil and your water, and you have erosion, then it robs you of your joy, and it discourages you, and it decreases your motivation to go out and do the work. But the more you're doing things on time to a high standard with minimal waste, whether you're planting a garden, doing a podcast, it brings joy, which motivates you to go back and do things more on time, more to a high standard, more with minimal waste. And I think I would challenge everybody, if you look at any area in your life that you feel like you're being unprofitable, or you don't feel like you're being faithful, start evaluating, how well am I doing at being on time? How well am I doing at doing things to a high standard? How well am I doing at doing things with minimal waste? How well am I doing it with joy? And often the biggest problem, hindrance to us being able to do that, is that we're not being focused enough, and we're trying to do too much too fast, and we're not willing to take the baby steps that it takes in the journey to do one step at a time. And if you're willing to say no and cut back to only what you can do on time to a high standard with minimal wastage and with joy, then God will really add to you, because he loves to bless and add to faithfulness, and he'll take away from unfaithfulness. So I'd love to leave those with you, because they've been so transformative principles in my life. And I hope that'll be a blessing. And whatever you do, whether you farm or not, whether you're overwhelmed with getting started with this whole homesteading journey or whatever, if you commit to take this journey and stay true to those principles, then you will find so much more joy. And if you lose your joy and you start getting discouraged, stop. Don't keep going. Go back and reevaluate, see where you've gotten out, where you're trying to go too fast, do too many things, and commit to doing things according to those principles. And it'll really save you a lot of headaches in the journey. But I'm excited for all of you, excited to be here today. And thanks so much for letting me join y'all.
That was fabulous. Thank you, Noah. Those 4 things were phenomenal for going deeper into the awareness of where our responsibility lies. And we can go back and be more faithful stewards, maybe in the areas where we're not seeing the fruit, the profit. I love that. Well, thank you so much. And I will end with a blessing for you all. And I just pray that this broadcast brought some added hope that you have what you need to move forward and to fulfill the calling that God has placed on your heart. And that rings true with what you need to be doing for such a time as this. So may the Lord bless you and keep you and shine his face towards you, be gracious to you, turn his countenance towards you, and give you shalom peace.